Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Wherever you're watching us from, this is Civic Space TV. And today I'm joined by students from Uganda Martyrs University, the Hope Initiative chapter, who will help us unpack the conversation relating to the credibility of the 1961 elections to date. But also the theme of this topic today is focusing on Uganda's unending quest for credible, free, and fair elections. In no particular order, allow me go ahead and introduce my guests who will help unpack this conversation and put perspective to it. I am joined by Mr. Obbo Daniel Claver. Mr. Obbo Daniel, you're most welcome. When the time comes, I'll give you the chance to say hello to the viewers, but also to make a quick introduction of yourself as well. Right next to Mr. Obbo Claver, I am joined by Mr. Aheebwa Peter. Mr. Aheebwa Peter is as well a student at Uganda Martyrs University. Right next to Mr. Aheebwa Peter, I'm joined by the only lady on the show, Miss Kulwenza Emilly Golomba. She's also a student at Uganda Martyrs University. Last but not the least, I'm joined by Mr. Orone Brian Derrick. Let me begin with you, Orone Brian Derrick. Please unmute, say hello to the viewers, and also get to hear in from you. Over to you.
Hello to the viewers. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Orone Brian Derrick, a student at Uganda Martyrs University Nkozi. I'm in my second year pursuing a bachelor's degree in education, arts with education, basically history and geography.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. And we're definitely looking forward to having an interesting and wonderful conversation with you. Let's listen in from you, Emilly. Just a quick introduction, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kulwenza Emilly Golomba, and I am a law student at Uganda Martyrs University Nkozi. I'm so delighted to be on the show.
Thank you. We're very happy to have you here as well. I see you're very happy and excited. We're definitely looking forward to having a wonderful session with you. Right next to Emilly, we are. Let's listen in from Aheebwa Andrew. Andrew, you're muted. Please unmute.
Yeah, good evening to all friends. My name is Aheebwa Andrew. I'm a student of Uganda Martyrs University, a student of education with arts, doing geography and history. I'm happy to be here and happy to be part of this team. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Peter Aheebwa. Mr. Daniel Obbo, please say hello to the viewers.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Obbo Daniel Claver, a proud law student from Uganda Martyrs University Nkozi, and I'm very happy and delighted to be online to share my view on everything. Thank you.
All right, let me stick with you, Obbo Daniel. This conversation about the credibility of Uganda's elections from 1961 to date is one that is very pertinent, considering that we are going to have or entering a crucial period of the 2026 general elections. And of course, when we have this conversation, it's very crucial for us as young people to offer our opinions on whether we think the elections in this country, dating back from our history, whether it has been credible, free, and fair. And it's imperative that we have a historical context to this conversation. And my question to you is, how would you therefore assess the credibility of Uganda's past elections in 1961 and 19? Betrayal, or were they a foundation or a betrayal of democratic practice? Obbo, over to you.
Yes, concerning my submission on the background on the very first election that we had, as I was making my research, if you read the philosophy books, because there is a book I was reading, it is of Professor Mutiwa, and you really find that the problem does not come when these colonialists leave us. The problem starts with us governing ourselves. And the problem really starts with those 1962 elections. Because when you assess these 1962 elections, you really see that there was a lot of cocoons, there was a lot of, should I say, controversies on it, because the people that prepared for us these elections did not prepare us, did not teach us what should be done in an election. Because in my perspective, I don't think that Uganda was really equipped to what an election means. Because if you read our history up to date, you see that the same thing that happened, the same things that happened back then are the same things that keep on conquering and conquering and conquering. Because if I'm to analyze those elections, we find out there was the intertwining of political parties. And this intertwining of political parties was not because of support for one another. It was because of hatred for one another, actually. Let me call it like that. It was hatred for one another. Because when you analyze these elections, Kabaka Eka combining with UPC, DP colliding with the Kabaka Eka party, because actually at some point, Kabaka Eka's party was called Kill Yourself. So, how do you tell me that if at all someone can say that a party can be branded as Kill Yourself, then how do you expect that to be free and fair? To me, I really don't think we have had the background of it all. Uganda has never been prepared for an election. It has never. Because first of all, the colonialists that left us to carry out this exercise did not equip us well and did not teach us well what amounts to a free and fair election.
All right. Thank you very much, Obbo. From your submissions, I get your sentiment that one, the colonial masters did not leave a foundation, or we weren't better equipped on their departure in terms of the idea of democracy. As such, the foundation was one of betrayal and not one of democratic practice. Allow me to get to you, Emilly. I would also still pose to you the same question. Would you still have the same thoughts that when you are assessing the credibility of Uganda's first elections in 1961 and 62, do you think that these elections laid a foundation of betrayal, or did it lay a foundation of democratic practice?
I am going to mainly fall on the side of these elections have not been free and fair. Tracing from Uganda's history from 1961, those 1961 elections were the ones that set a precedent for all the elections that have gone on in the country. But looking at them, they had a lot of bias from the people, mainly the Waganda at the time, who wanted the Luchiko to have a bigger stake in the elections. Now, looking at all the elections we have had after that time, even if we are to talk about the 1980 elections that were hijacked by the army, we see that the commander-in-chief of the army was, I think, David Oite Ojok, coming to hijack the elections, coming to all these other elections we have had. All these recent elections we have had have set a negative precedent. And now coming to the recent elections we've had, probably the ones from 2001, all those elections, we see them characterized with intimidation, voter bribery. We see rigging of elections. We see a lot of irregularities in the system, in the electoral process. And yeah, we are not, when I'm to talk about the elections being characterized by betrayal, I really like stand and be like, yes, they are characterized by betrayal. They are, to this point, as we're preparing for the 2026 elections, I do not see the recent elections being free and fair. We see heavy involvement of the army in the elections. We see a lot of irregularities going on during the electoral process
Thank you.
that we are here to chastise and condemn. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So from your submissions, you assert that the elections that started from 1961 and 1962 to date, in your own assessment, is those elections first of all laid a foundation of betrayal, which chronicles of course it chronicles up to date, and we see its side effects happening in all the previous elections that we have had in terms of vote rigging and bribery, the involvement of the army, among other negative effects that we've seen that have, of course, come as a result of the foundation of betrayal that was laid. Let me get to you, Andrew Aheebwa, before I go to Brian. My question to you will now, of course, at some point shift the gears and bring it more to the electoral malpractice that Emilly seems to lay foundation upon. So directly, I would pose a question to you and ask that what are the patterns of electoral malpractice can be traced across the different regimes from 1961 to date?
Much, Mr. Derrick, and thanks for the opportunity given. Yeah, about the pattern of electoral practice that we have had ever since the 19 elections up to date, I can admit that from 1961 to 1961 roughly to 1980, I can admit that the kind of malpractice was not there because of the boycotts. You remember in 1961 about the Uganda boycotting the election at first, then before coming up as the Kabaka Yeka party to join the race. Now we crossed to 1967, which was supposed to follow the independence of 1962, whereby we were supposed to have an election which was not held, of course, after the boycott of after the coup d'etat of this Dr. Apollo Milton Obote. Then we crossed to Aminy's regime, which was more of a military regime, and we didn't see any election transpiring during that time. Now let's draw attention to the election of 1880 that sparked it all. We can I would like you to pay attention to the election of 1880 after the overthrow of Amin. In that year, the election that had been organized for Uganda, which had different political parties contesting, having men like Obote, having our own Museveni, and of course the other fellows. But the challenge first here is that on the eve of announcing the results of the vote, actually the chairman of the Electoral Commission by then, not even the chairman, this man called Paul Manga, who decides to take on the mandate of the vote, taking it from the committee which had been organized which had been set up to organize the election, of course, indicating that he must be the only person to post that vote. Therefore, declaring Obote as the winner of the vote. A fact that sparked off the guerrilla war against the Obote government up to 1886, leading to up to 1885, bringing Museveni later in 1886 into power. But now, besides that, we move on to the elections. Talk about the general election is the 1990 under the 1995 constitution, of course, 1996. It is the first general election that people maybe consider to be the only true and free and fair election that we've had in the country. But still, there were cases whereby the opponents were claiming that there was some malpractice. But now, the elections in the early 1995, no, 1996 and below. Let's draw attention to that election of 2001, whereby we had many political candidates contesting for the highest seat, that is the seat of the president. And the reason here to argue about is the result. Actually, the Dr. Kiza Kanovesije comes out of the vote saying that he was cheated. Later on, leaving alone the 2001 election, of course, he lost even the petition court, which he had filed against the incumbent, who is still the ruling man of the country, the General Yoweri Kaguta. Later on, the pattern has been with an increasing trend from 2001 up to date, with the most recent one of 2021. But now, Dr. Kizza Besigye has continuously stated that he has been rigged in these votes. Not only him, but even other political opponents. But of course, Dr. Kizza Besigye being the major political opponent. And now,
All right. Andrew, allow me just hold you there and engage with Brian, just on that point that you've noted. You have given us a very good historical perspective as to regards to electoral malpractice, tracing from 1961 to date. But notably in your submission, an area of interests that, in my opinion, would spark an interesting conversation is on disputed elections. In your submissions, you assert that elections have been disputed right from 2001 to date. Notably, Dr. Kizza Besigye, who, of course, in your submissions, you say disputed the elections of 2001, 2006, 2011, but also we see recently in 2021, Bobi Wine going ahead to dispute these elections. This, of course, gives us a trend of we see a trend of disputed elections, not only of presidential aspirants, but also we have seen disputed elections of aspirants for the position of member of parliament. Derrick, the question that I would therefore of interest that I would like you to respond to is, to what extent have historical experiences of disputed elections shaped Uganda's political culture?
Thank you so much, Derrick, for this opportunity.
Derrick, you're very low.
Thank you for the opportunity. So I hope you can get me now clearly.
I can try, but maybe you can make your voice a little bit louder. It would be better. But proceed.
Yes, so what I'm trying to say, the trend of past grievances and so on, how they are shaping the current trend of the elections, is just so simple. The trust that we as Ugandans, those engaging in the elections, those that are overseeing elections, we've all lost trust. The trust seems to be there for only those who benefit from it, from the elections. So I don't think there's anything that we are trying to learn from the past. Rather, we are just keeping up the trend that is there. In that, if we look at the past elections from 1961, as my friends have noted, 1961, 1962, the suspension of the Constitution in 1967, come to 1979, 1980, we see simple errands that lead to grievances. Look at where Mr. Museveni says he was cheated in 1980. Something so simple that almost everyone says was so clear that he lost an election, but rather he felt he had won. And that kept us moving. Come to 1995. Most people will tell you, you see 1995 elections, they seem to be the most free that Uganda has had. But then you'll get a voice or two that will tell you, no, even when they seemed to be free, we cannot say they were free or they were the best. Why? Political parties were not allowed to participate. It was under universal suffrage. How many people were allowed to participate? Very few. What were the voting numbers? Very small. Come to 2001. Grievances. In the end, having Dr. Kizza Besigye fly to South Africa for self-imposed exile. Then he forces himself back into the country in 2005 for the 2006 elections. That is after multi-party democracy had been allowed in the country. Come to 2011. What were the precursors to 2011? What happened? There were so many things. By the time we had the group of Betty Nambos, Matthias Mpuga leaving the Uganda government, and they come as the children to the Kabaka, the six, Matthias Mpuga, Betty Nambos, Mwanga Chivumbi, and the rest. They come in and they look to be the stars. but then they also find their own issues. They came to demand for different things. Then we find them, some are self-seeking. So there is nothing much that we are trying to pick from the past elections. Rather, only those who feel they benefit from the system are showing that it is fine. We can continue, no matter the grievances that do exist, it is okay. Even we have those that seemed to be okay with the elections. Look at the former Prime Minister, Amama Mbabazi. He seemed so fine with whatever was happening in the elections. He ended up coming up with the Public Order Management Act, and when time came, it was against him. He complained, says the elections are not fair, and this and that. This, what comes up in the end? He's like, no, whatever we are doing is wrong. After a short while, he's back to where he's saying things are wrong. So there is nothing so much we are learning. Rather, we are just increasing on the violence. If you look at 1980, with lots of violence after Oito Ojoke had taken over power of the Electoral Commission, then we go to 2021. What is so much the difference? Rather than trying to legitimize it and we say, this time it is COVID, and so because of COVID, if someone decides that, you know, I want to die because of disease X, let me die. Then you're saying, no, you will not die, I'm protecting you. And you, in the end, you end up killing over 60 people in a single day. So the violence still exists. We seem to have normalized it. Look at the malpractices that do exist. Cheating is rather rampant, and these days, not shameless at all. It seems to be the norm of the day. If you look at people in big offices, they ferry people and you only give them a plate of food and maybe 20K, 30K, 10,000. Others even don't get what they want. They get money. And we are saying the elections are okay? I don't think. We have people that only stand because I want to stand and support myself. First, look at the youth elections. They've been on in Kololo of recent. A delegate tells you, you call a friend and the person tells you, I didn't come to vote, rather I came to work. What does that mean? There is a very big problem, and this is not only to be settled by us, but as Mr. Obbo said, we may not fully blame ourselves, but rather at certain extent, blame the former colonial masters, those were the Britons, because yes, they gave us a pathway to elections after independence, but did they shape us fully? They seem to have, to some extent. But then what they did, we did not follow it up, what they put for us. Because if we are to look at them having the prime minister as the head of the country, with the president being more ceremonial, and we went astray from that path, some of the laws they put, as long as the oppressing whoever was in charge, were removed from the constitution, and all this, the implementation of the army in elections, rather we are keeping up the trend rather than having things right. Though, to a smaller extent, there are things we would say are sort of a little fair. Look at participation. Yes, 1980, how many people participated in the elections? Very few. And now we have so many people fighting, people killing each other because they want to be in an election. But then someone would ask you, if the numbers are increasing of those standing for office, is it because it is right? Or is it because it is fair? Or it is because these are self-seeking individuals? So that now will trigger our minds to go back to the Constitution, Article 1, where we say power, everyone has the authority. Power belongs to the people. And then we say Article 1 gives us that authority. Then someone will throw it Article 60, Article 61, Article 62. And then you would say, maybe, somehow, depending on the side you fall on. But really, the trend is not that good.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Derrick, for that elaborative but also distinctive submission as to regards to the historical experiences that have shaped our electoral environment today. In your submissions, you show us how the experiences of disputed elections have shaped and are still shaping our political culture today, which is, of course, marred with a lot of violence, which is marred with a lot of malpractice, which is marred with a lot of sectarianism and nepotism, among other electoral malpractices that you highlight in your submissions. At this point, allow me to get back to you, Emilly. The 1995 Constitution is a framework that of course, your law students on this call, you know that it is termed as a progressive constitution. Of course, this document being termed as a progressive constitution, of course, this year we are celebrating 30 years. And in us celebrating 30 years, there's a question of whether this document has delivered us free and fair elections 30 years later. So my question to you is, Emilly, the 1995 Constitution of the Republic of Uganda promised free and fair elections. 30 years later, has it delivered on that promise?
In my perspective, it has not. It has not delivered the free and fair elections because I think it's Article 60 of the Constitution that clearly stipulates the duties of the Electoral Commission. The Constitution stipulates the duties of the Electoral Commission and how the elections are supposed to be run. But in my perspective, I am feeling like it is the people who are supposed to execute what is stated in the Constitution that are failing to do what they are supposed to do. Talking about just looking at what the Constitution says about what the Electoral Commission, yes, okay, I would say the Electoral Commission, among the duties of the Electoral Commission, the Constitution doesn't stipulate that the Electoral Commission should probably involve the army, it should do this, but we are seeing involvement of the army, we are seeing the Electoral Commission failing to do some of its core duties, because talking about, let me just narrow it down probably to election bribery. Every political party is supposed to file annual returns to the Electoral Commission. You know, yeah, annual returns. So according to what we see in the elections, we do not see that the Electoral Commission is following up those annual returns of every political party. We are seeing members in political positions, especially those who are wanting to come back for office. They're already occupying electoral positions, but they want to come back into office. We see the nature of campaigns and the nature of money these people spend. Just now talking about let me talk about SEC. Someone wanting to be a member of SEC, you're willing to part ways with 5 billion shillings just to be a member of SEC. And this is someone who is occupying a political position, you know, as more of a sensitive political position. And then as the Electoral Commission, you do not follow up on the annual returns of the political party that person is coming from. It fails to make sense and something fails to add up. And also, just talking about even a report from the Alliance for Campaign Finance Monitoring, they did a study. And just in a sample of 29 districts in the 2021 elections, they had spent over 800 billion shillings just on the elections that happened there. Now, if we are to talk about now the 146 districts in Uganda, when you're trying to make it equivalent to the 800 billion of just 29 districts, you see that it is almost 4 trillion shillings. And now that almost 4 trillion shillings, try to extrapolate it to the national budget that was there at the time, you realize it is almost 10% of the national budget. But the Electoral Commission at the time did not do anything. And that still takes me back to, it's not doing its duties as stipulated in the 1995 Constitution. That is why we are getting these cases of bribery, cases of what they do not follow up any returns, even just talking about, okay, following up some of these leaders, all these people who are trying to get into political positions, trying to follow up how they're getting the money that they are doing. Just do an audit, try to collaborate with the IGG and do an audit of this person, probably, and see how, how this is, it doesn't add up. And you see, all this becomes, it comes to it being at the expense of the taxpayer, who is still the marginalized Ugandan. And yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Emily, for that submission. Obbo, I would also like to pick your thoughts on the same. We're talking about the 1995 Constitution. Emily's submission is that the 1995 Constitution, on its promise of delivering or offering Ugandans a free and fair election, to that account, it has failed to deliver us, or it has failed to deliver its promise of giving us free and fair elections 30 years later. But also, I would pose the same question to you. The 1995 Constitution promised to give us free and fair elections 30 years later. Has it delivered on that promise? Daniel Obbo.
Yes, I personally, I don't think Uganda has even never had elections. I don't know what we should term it, but we should get another term for the practice we do, apart from, besides what is called elections. Because if you're to say that it promised us, yes, this is simply a document that was written by the most intelligent people. But I think to a certain point, I will say they have tried to provide us with a free and fair elections. One, if you look at, because when we are looking at elections, we are not specifically looking at the presidential elections. And I would like to put this straight. We are not specifically looking at the presidential elections. We are looking at the general elections, because the Electoral Commission does not only cater for the presidential elections. It caters for other elections like LC chairmans, the MPs, the president. So to some extent, if we are to maybe allow me say, if we are to put off the presidential thing from the elections, to some point, the Electoral Commission has done its job. To some point, because you really see that members of parliament, some go there out of democracy, like people really vote these people and they win and go to parliament and represent their people from their constituencies. So I will not say entirely that Electoral Commission has not done its job as stipulated in the Constitution. To some extent, it has done its job through elections of these members of parliament, the members of the LC chairmans and whatsoever. So in that point of view, I can give them the credit. I can give the Electoral Commission the credit. But now when you come to the presidential bit of it, I think when you to see from the enactment from the 1995 Constitution, like ever since its enactment in 1995, we see that the first election, the 2001 election, disputes still arose from vote rigging. When you come to 2006, my interest is now on 2006 election. We see that, yes, Besigye petition. But now, if Besigye petitions, remember, we are operating in three arms of government. We have the judiciary, the parliament, and the executive arm. Now, we are in a state of the constitutional bit. Remember, we are all submitting according to the constitutional bit. The Constitution mandates the Supreme Court to listen to presidential petitions. And the core value and the core importance of the judiciary is to interpret the Constitution for us. Now, if a judge wakes up and says that, yes, there was vote rigging and all that, and that does not necessarily amount that there should be a by-election on this presidential petition, what does that mean? I think if you to stand and say there was vote rigging, that automatically makes it to a by-election. But if you fail to interpret it in that way, just because, of course, I will not say, of course, we all know that, yes, there was bribery and everything. I don't want to go into that. That was there. Me, I'm looking at the duty of the judiciary in that instance. The sole reason of it was to stand out and say, these elections should be, maybe we should hold a by-election on the president. We would see now the real spirit of elections in the judiciary and in the constitution, if it was to be decided like that. Because all the conditions in that petition amounted to a by-election, which did not happen. So we come to 2011. We see that now also 2011, the same uprisings come up. 2016, Amama Mbabazi is now the main point of view. He petitions, but still, now remember, the ruling of the Supreme Court becomes law and it becomes a precedent. That means we have given a lesser, that means these precedents give a lesser fate to these judges to come back and reinstate their decision that is made in 2006 to affect the 2016 elections, to affect the 2022 election, to affect also the 2021 to 2011 election. That means whichever petition will come up, the Supreme Court is not likely to go against its decision that it made in the 2006 petition. What does that show? We have not had free and fair elections. That means whatever was promised to us in the Constitution is just a fallacy. So back to you, Derrick. That's my submission on that.
Thank you. Very interesting submission and analysis, especially when you bring in the constitutional petition of 2006, which of course found in affirmative that there was rigging, but of course, due to national interest, they had to declare the results on the other end. But of course, that still takes us back to the historical experiences of disputed elections, something that, of course, lays a premise for a lot of discussion and debate. But let me get to you, Aheebwa Peter. In the submissions of Emilly, she highlighted the role of an electoral commission. And we know that the 1995 Constitution provides, stipulates for the electoral commission, which of course is supposed to be independent. But in the electoral framework, the electoral commissioners are appointed by the President of the Republic of Uganda. In this instance, the previous electoral commissioners have been appointed by His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. To that point, I have a question in that regard, which states that, does the current electoral framework under the 1995 Constitution adequately safeguard the independence of the Electoral Commission? Andrew, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Derrick. Yeah. About the question about whether the Electoral Commission protects the independence of the electoral processes in Uganda, like you clearly stated in your explanation that the chairman of the Electoral Commission is appointed, of course, by the sitting president of the country. However much is subject to approval by the parliament in terms of taking the seat. But now, where does it leave us? Where if in case the person who is supposed to, the person who is part of the presidential race is a person who appoints this person into power. Now it is two-fold. Number one, when this person is appointed into this office, of course we jubilate, we celebrate that a new person has taken on the tenure. But now what comes in return is what this person has to play in favor of the person who brings him into office. You'll agree with me that most of them, they could be men of good value, they could be women of good value and intentions, but maybe just because of selfish interests and the desire to retain the position the positions they hold in a particular time, they may decide to act to act according to the desires of the person who brings them into office. Let's look into it from 1995. Of course, it is 1995 when the act is first brought, and like let there be an independent electoral commission. It is created, of course, 1996. An election is held, and one thing that is very interesting is that from that time to date, the sitting president has been the person in charge of appointing the persons who have held different offices, who have held the office of the chairmanship of the electoral commission up to date, starting from the pioneer chairman, that being Alhaji that being Haji Kasuja Aziz. They will look at Badru Kipundu today to have Justice Simon. No, we have Biabaka Mastil, a man from Bunyoro. But now, personally, I think even not even just thinking, but when you look at how things have been done and what is happening today in the electoral field, you look at how the agenda of the electoral process, how it is being made simpler for the person who is contesting, the incumbent leader, help him maintain the grip to power. Because when you look at whatever has been brought, for example, in the most recent roadmap and even the 2021 roadmap, remember, actually 2021 brings it out most very well. You remember it was a period of COVID-19. The members of the opposition and the sitting party, which is NRM, they had different kinds of campaigning grounds. Today you find an NRM candidate in a given place. Let's a case in point like Nkozi grounds, the same place. Then if it is organized for NRM, then it is a success. Then when the Honorable Chagulanyi chooses to use the same place, they will tell him the place is too small, it cannot accommodate all people who are supposed to attend your rally. Meaning that there is a way the person who is sitting at the chairman or even the entire electoral commission, they try to play cards in favor of someone who has to maintain them in that seat. So to me, I don't think at any point that these people have tried to help the Ugandans attain the elections and the democracy they are entitled to. Because one, they have to maintain their positions. That's true. They want to stay in power. They want to say that because of maybe the privileges that come with it, they have to act according to the interests of the person who puts them into office. And two, when you still look at the petitions that are put in court in line with the vote rigging, these people maybe deserve protecting their integrity as the leaders of the institution at the moment. In one way or the other, they may not have the powers to directly intervene in the rulings of court, but still, if there was any way, they would not accept any petition to go through as a success, because one, it tarnishes their name as the electoral commission, because they hold them the powers to announce the vote. Now think about it, announcing an election figure, then tomorrow you have the same person to pull it down. It loses meaning to the public, because you look a weak leader. So to me, the electoral commission, based on its criteria of enlightenment, has not served the public according to how it must be. It must be as it is related to the constitution. The major goal of the electoral commission is to promote participatory democracy and good governance. Of course, like any other laws, we have them. They are very mainly written down in their book, but they have not served the public.
Yes. Allow me to just cut you there, Andrew, and bring in Brian. It's a very interesting component when you're talking about the independence of the Electoral Commission and how, of course, the appointing powers vesting in the person of the president renders or, of course, interferes with the independence nature of the Electoral Commission. Therefore, I just have a follow-up question to you, Brian. From the submissions of Andrew, the question to you is looking at, should therefore the appointment of the electoral commissioners remain a prerogative of the president, or should Uganda explore other independent selection mechanisms for the electoral commissioners? Brian.
Thank you so much, Derrick. Yes, if you are to have really independent, free, fair, credible, whatever we may call it, elections in this country, at any one point, that at least we would maybe say 80% of the population would agree with, then we are going to go beyond having the president being the fountain of honor and choosing whoever they choose. Let's look at first the government parastatals. Yes, we have those appointment boards in them, but are you sure that the ones that choose whoever leads them or give people jobs? That is subjective to whoever it may be. But then we have the president choosing the 6 commissioners of the Electoral Commission. We have the president choosing the judges that is now in the legislature. He appoints whoever it would be. And we've had cases, a few, where, let's say he appoints Brian reaches the parliament, and they're like, you know what? Brian will not make the cut. He's not at it. Then they'll play around with my papers for days and days. Then at the end they'll say, you know what? He has made the cut. But why is it so? Because the president has said he should be there, she should be there, and so on. So if we really have an electoral commission and we say independent, but when one of the candidates is the one who chooses the commissioners or the heads of the electoral commission, the 6 for the whole country, one person chooses them, then he says, I'm also a candidate. Just imagine you as the dad at home, you have your children, you buy them food, then tell them, go on and tell other people how dads should act. They will have automatically tell them, you know what, a dad should buy food, dad should do this, dad should do the other. And that is the same thing with elections. Like Andrew has said, and Obbo also hinted on it, we cannot have the Electoral Commission being headed by a person that has been totally appointed by the president, vetted into office, and then you expect him at any one point, be it him, be it a she, but for our case it is a him, to go against the boss. We also, in 2021, during the announcement of the presidential elections, those 3 days, the results, one of the journalists asked, that is from NTV, if you have the internet off across the country, and you're saying these results are being sent to you via the internet, how are they getting to you but the internet is off the country? Then the justice proudly says it, you know what, we have our own way. Do you really think that really is an explanation? Someone will tell you, our own way, what do you mean? The results are trickling in via the internet, via your own way, but the internet is off countrywide. Then it beats anyone's understanding.
Allow me to just cut you there, Derrick. You brought in an aspect that I just wanted us to shift gears to discuss. That is access to media, internet, and also security plus financing. You know, in the 2021 elections, it was a unique one. Of course, one that was termed as, of course, we had terms such as the scientific campaigns. Under the scientific campaigns, you had candidates being allocated to particular media houses, and some were even denied access to certain media houses to campaign to their opponents. And of course, that brought in an aspect of denial of access to media. But also there's a component which is very interesting, the security. There's a lot of police brutality and violence, not only by the police, but also the involvement of the military in the process. But another third and very interesting component is the conversation relating to financing. That you see, our elections have become extremely expensive, that very many groups are either excluded because they do not have the resources to spend in the process, or the monies that are required is overly and beyond for someone to, of course, offer during the race. So my question to you is, can an election in Uganda be truly free and fair in the absence of equal access to media, security, and financing?
The answer is definitely a no from me. Why? Look at the recommendations by the Supreme Court, 2011, 2016, and even in 2021, it did hint on them. Access to media space should be equal and so on. Let's have a very recent incident about a month back during the nomination. When candidate Museveni was speaking after his nomination at the Electoral Commission grounds, everything was okay. Network was fine. Everything was okay. He was allowed to speak for as long as he could. Yes, that is what the Electoral Commission gives. Speak until you feel you are done, then leave the premises. I think that was a Tuesday. Everything was clear. Come to Wednesday when candidate Kyagulanyi was explaining. When he started his speech, it was quite clear. UBC, being the national broadcaster, was well showing everything live. When he started criticizing the current president, we first had a glitch in the coverage. It cleared. Second glitch, third glitch, it moved straight to announcements, then to Kololo for the incumbent's manifesto launch. So if we have the Supreme Court saying media space should be equal, should be given to everyone, and then one candidate has 4 hours in a day, another has just a small segment of less than 3 minutes on the news, and which is more of selective coverage, it's really so dangerous. Then someone will tell you, if the national broadcaster is doing that, what do you expect from private owners? Then this will push us to a private network, the NTV. Someone will tell you, yes, UBC is not doing everything because it is government owned, so it has to cover the government and all its programs. But then the person will tell you, but even NTV doesn't cover. It covers opposition, it doesn't cover the president. Then one will tell you, why do you think NTV does it? Because it was denied. Why? It somehow, to some extent, exposes the rot that is happening. So media space is so crucial. It is needed for a free and fair election, at least for everyone to speak their minds out, then leave the voters to judge, and they will say, I'll vote A, I'll vote B, because of X, Y, and Z. So media space is so crucial in whatever we do as pilot.
Thank you very much, Brian, for that analysis. Emilly, let me get to you. Multi-party dispensation was introduced or through a referendum in the year 2005, and the elections of 2000 reintroduced, and the elections of 2006 was under a multi-party dispensation. And my question to you is, has Uganda's multi-party system since 2005 enhanced or weakened electoral credibility?
Multi-partyism. Now, if I'm to talk about since 2005, when multi-partyism was brought back, we see, number one, that since that time, the political party that was reigning at the time as the political party that was governing the country is the same one that is the same one that is the one, it's the same political party to date. And basing on the fact of revival of multipartyism with the same political party and everything that has been going on in the elections, it has actually, for me, I would say multipartyism has been good to a lesser extent, that it has kind of opened people's eyes, and it has also given different people platform to come out and, sensitize the public, occupy political positions, probably in parliament and all. But to a broader perspective, one party has been dominant since that time to date. So, yeah, I do not think still that it brought about a lot of credibility in the elections to date.
Right. So in your conclusion, you would therefore say that the multi-party system since 2005 has to a greater extent weakened electoral credibility?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. Obbo, I'm interested in the youth and civic participation. We as young people, we form a very core component in the 2026 coming elections in terms of our numbers, but also in terms of our participation in the process. But there's a question of us thinking, is it the ballot that is going to deliver us to the promised land? And this informs the question that I have to you, that do the Ugandan youth believe in elections as a pathway for change, or have we as young people lost faith in the ballot? A question I pose to you and Andrew. Daniel.
Yes, to begin, to answer that question, like, first of all, if I'm to ask you, Derrick, you have a national ID, right?
Yes, I do.
Are you in the voters register where you're supposed to vote?
Yes, I am.
How sure are you?
I'm sure that I'm a voter in Gulu, in a place called Kanyagoga.
Yes, thank you. Now, you see that diligence that you have as a youth to do all that. That is what is affecting most of the youth in Uganda. They do not have that diligence. Actually, if you count the youth that who know that very well that are in the vote, they are in their respective voters register. They are very few. Now, we are looking at that diligence part. Most of the youth, trust me, Derrick, they are not in the voters register. They even don't know where they're supposed to vote from. These are just people to make noise. And how does this benefit the people in power and the people eyeing to go into politics and everything? They are going to utilize this narrow space that youth, yes, they are not in the voter register, they don't have national IDs. Because remember, now, I want, we are all on this platform. I want us to see a contradiction here. If you're to vote, they tell you you have to be in the voters register. That's number one. Now, but remember, the Constitution provides that every Ugandan has the right to vote. If every Ugandan has the right to vote, why, and what shows that you're a Ugandan is your national ID. Now, I would like us to critique this. If I have my national ID and I'm a citizen of Uganda, now what is the importance of me being in the voters register? Because remember, it is saying I have a right to vote. And what shows that I'm a Ugandan, I have my national ID. Why is it? Because you find these disputes in polling stations that, oh, you're not in the voters register, you cannot vote here. Now, that's a question for us to answer as us. Back to what you really asked me, do we really believe in the ballot as a mechanism to change the government? My answer to that will be no. Because remember, we are under a government that came into through a coup. We are under government. Remember, we have Museveni the rebel and Museveni the president, and it's still the same person. So, if at all we had experienced an election where they have defeated him and he has gone off, maybe we would say ballot can be a mechanism of change of power. But to my submission, I don't think a ballot can be our mechanism to change of power, because we have really seen that it is not going to work. We have tried courts, we have tried parliament, we have tried ourselves voting, I personally voting in 2021, but still nothing. That means the ballot cannot be the mechanism to change this government. I think we should try other means. Yeah, but not the ballot. Yes.
From your submission, I would first of all, I'm a proponent of peace. And I would say, as young people who are civically aware, such as yourself, you ought to preach the message to the fellow young people out there who are not in the voters register. For the next round of elections come 2031, of course, some people will be entering their 30s, others are in their late 20s to go and register. But of course, as young people, it is our duty and civic responsibility that us who are aware of these rights and duties, we need to have our fellow young people who do not know also, get to know that they have their civic rights, their civic and political rights as well. Aheebwa, the same question goes to you. As a young person, do you believe in elections as a pathway for change, or have you also lost faith in the ballot?
Thank you so much, Mr. Derrick. Of course, this is an interesting question that is always approached with a mixed feeling. Yeah, personally, I will answer. I will try answering it in the twofold. First, I will answer it as someone who believes in democracy and the social contract, of course. And then I will still now take you back to the team that I belong to. that is the youth, the team that you addressed first as being the majority and with maybe even the majority vote. Mr. Derrick and the other fellows on the platform, you'll agree with me that the democracy in Uganda and the ability of the vote to determine who is next in Uganda has been raped over the past by the incumbent, and even those he succeeded, the people who came before him. Because look at maybe with an exception of Mutesa, the Kabaka, the first president, who was more or less just appointed into office. Then from him, he's overthrown by a military coup. Then we see Amin still coming into power of some other military coup. After Amin is also overthrown by the gun. Obote comes in, he's also overthrown by Museveni, the man. Now, Museveni now takes on from 1886 to present. Now, as a person who believes in democracy, democracy is the rule of the majority. And of course, the social contract that the people, those are the ruled, have the power to determine who leads name next. That they come into social contract and they elect into office someone who they feel like should take them on. Now, this is a person they have also the mandate of removing from office by the powers entrusted to them. For Uganda here specifically, we talk about the first article in the Constitution, that power belongs to the people. That the same people have the right of removing this person from office. But now, of course, democracy today has remained as something to look at as a job, because to me, democracy is is an opportunity given to us by the people in power, those who lead us, to act as if we are electing them into office for a next term of service, not actually to serve us but to oppress us. Now, that is what I can tell you as for democracy, as for myself, that today it is more of nothing like democracy, because we line up. Today it is now lining up like it was in the vote of 1980. They also lined up in the backs of the different candidates. After lining up, after everything has been tallied up on the tally center, still now the person announcing the vote comes up with the different figure that is totally different from what we had on the polling stations. Now, can an election determine the person leading next? The country like Uganda as youth? Honestly, Mr. Derrick, I wish to side with my fellow, that is Mr. Obbo, that in Uganda, as for now and today, and maybe for the few days to come, we cannot say that an election can remove anybody from office and even bring into another person in office. It is on record that Kiza Kano BCJ also stated it that if Honorable Chagulanyi thinks that the vote is going in office, then he should restructure his plan. The incumbent, that is His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, stated it clearly that he came into office by the power of the gun, and it must be the gun that is taking him out of power. We have seen it over the recent elections, 2001, 2005, mention it in 2011, 16, 21. The opposition candidates almost have the popular support of the population, the majority support. We see them rallying up with people who are much more than the incumbent. But what happens after the election has been held? On the last day of announcing the results, they will tell you that the incumbent has won the opponent with a percentage that is unrealistic, more than 10, more than 20. In the last elections, we even had the incumbent saying that Honorable Chagulanyi rigged his vote, that Chagulanyi cheated him. How on earth can you believe that? So to me, in a country like Uganda, where even the incumbent clearly mentions it that he came to power by gun and he will live by the gun, then it will take me to what Stalin said. Stalin, the man in charge of the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, that it is not the vote that determines who leads next, but the person who is counting the vote. Taking me back to the question you asked me first about the Electoral Commission in terms of the fairness in the electoral process, it can never be fair, most especially if you have a military regime. It cannot. The vote will not determine the person leading next. If anybody has this feeling in mind, then they have to sit down and look at the plan. That's why I side with some team. They can hardly say that I'm part of them. We look for the vote, we protect it, and even fight for it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Andrew. As we have already reached the 1 hour mark, but as we sign off, I'll give each of you a minute or less than a minute actually to make your recommendations and concluding remarks. Let me start with you, Andrew, and I'll have Derrick, Daniel, and I'll conclude with Emilly in 60 seconds, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Derrick, for the opportunity granted. It's unfortunate that I can hardly do anything usefully in the 6 seconds or the 6 minutes
60,
or
60 seconds. That's a minute.
60 seconds. Oh, yeah. Once again, I'm Andrew Aheebwa Akiki, a student of education, Uganda Martyrs University. In line with the topic, in the topic that we are discussing today, I can easily tell anybody that the credibility of the elections and the electoral process that we have had in Uganda has not been fair to the Ugandans. However, it has been fair to the people who led this country from that time to now. So the electoral processes that we have had have not served the intentions of the ruled, but they have been manipulated to serve the interests of the people who are ruling, who are the minority over the majority. Thank you so much, Mr. Derrick.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrew. I'm very happy that you joined us in this conversation. Derrick.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Derrick, for the opportunity. Yes, as per the last question you asked my friends before I give my concluding remarks, I'll sum it up swiftly. On the side of the youth, we have totally lost faith that elections could do anything, though there is a very small glimpse or small light at the end of the tunnel, very minor, that maybe we can still have a little hope. And that's why you see that very many times when someone dies, instead of mourning that would be African culture, we jubilate that Brian has died, so and so has died. We are like, we have survived that individual. And that is why at this point, whenever we get information that the president is sick, the president has been rushed to hospital, the next thing we are waiting to hear, the president has died. And I assure you, Mr. Derrick, as per the very many conversations I've had from my fellows, my friends, the day that news will come in, I hope we can get in touch. You maybe tell me what is in your area. Anyway, to conclude, as per the topic, yes.
But we wish the president good health.
Probably.
Those are your opinions anyway. Proceed.
So probably what I'm trying to say is, as per our topic and our discussion, yes, to some extent we've had, but to a minor extent, let me be exact, we've had some small glimpse of hope that at some point we may have something good in democracy. Yes, we have fully defined it and we know how it is defined. And yeah, very many people are struggling to make it what it should be. And we only hope that at one point we will be there, we will enjoy it. And yes, we cannot say that it can be 100%. No one will ever be contented. Even when 99 are saying everything is good, at least there's a one dark brand who will say this is wrong. So we hope we can reach at a certain point when the majority benefit rather than the minority, though we have some small sentiments or some symbolisms of good that is in the country. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Derrick. Daniel, in 60 seconds, your recommendations and concluding remarks.
Yeah, I'm going to use exactly 60 seconds. Yeah, my name is Obbo Claver, and I was very delighted to be part of this conversation. Yeah, I would like us to, first of all, I'll begin with my recommendations. One is that if the youth really want everything to pass through democracy, they should be aware of technicalities in these elections. Having a national ID, being in the voters register, and you know where you're supposed to vote from. So that you don't hear things like, they refused me to vote, they refused me to vote. No, just have that education on your mind and know that I vote from here, and this is the person I'm supporting. Maybe to some extent it shall be a solution, or maybe not. Then also to the government, we really know that they are the real observers of the law. So let them observe the law. Uniforms have no business in courts, neither on polling stations. So let them be the first people to acknowledge that we have a constitution, because once they violate it, because we have always this proverb: a good leader is an exemplary one. If they are not exemplary, then how are we going to be exemplary with our citizens? You see, this is it's a fallacy. So the government needs to be exemplary. It needs to equip us with what should be done. It needs to the Electoral Commission needs to educate people on what elections are, because trust me, there are some people who even don't know what the term election means. They just hear Kulwenza, but they don't know what it really means and what power it carries. So I think these are the few things that we should look up to, and maybe at the end of the day, you never know what God has in stock for us, because at the end of the day, He's the main man. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Daniel. The lady, Emilly.
Yeah, what I have to say is lastly, my name is Kulwenza Emilly Golomba, and I am a law student at Uganda Martyrs University Nkozi. I'm just going to urge Ugandans, especially the youth, as Daniel had said, make sure you have your national ID. Stop being pessimistic about voting. Do not say the final result is already decided. Go and vote. Get your names in the voters register. Also, I urge you to be whistleblowers. You see, and it's something that is not right during an election. You see vote rigging. You see. Probably you have been hired to be a runner at the polling station, and something doesn't happen. Something happens and it's not right. Be a whistleblower. Try to play your part in these elections. Also, vote ability. Look at someone who is competent enough, because good leadership is service provision. See someone who is able to deliver for you, because at the end of the day, you putting that person into leadership is going to affect you as an individual. Yes, what else can I say? Yeah, basically that's it. And also to instill the youth, make sure as you are trying to support whichever person you are supporting, you do not put yourself in precarious situations. Make sure you have yourself agitate for good leaderships, but for good leadership safely. Yes, and pray for the country. That's basically what I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Emilly, Derrick, Daniel, and Andrew, for the wonderful submissions that you guys have made in this discussion. It has been candid and it has been very interesting on my end. Personally, I'll be looking forward to having all of you come next week for the competitions, and I believe the conversation today has been interesting. And to you, our dear viewers, also for religiously always following the inter-university debates and interface. Otherwise, it's been an interesting conversation. My name is Douglas Onen. See you soon. Have a good night, have a good evening, have a good morning, have a good afternoon, wherever you're watching us from. Bye-bye.